and welcome to Sound Like, where today we're going to look at Hysteria. To kick off with the guitar, we're using the Manson MA2 Evo with Sustainer, and let's get into pedal cam. Okay, so we've arrived safely into pedal cam. We're using patch 8 for this song. From A to D, we are using the Whammy and Prime Distortion Phase 90. Patch B, Whammy, Overdrive Distortion and Phase 90. C, Whammy, Prime Distortion, Delay and Phase 90. And finally at D, Whammy, Overdrive Distortion, Phase 90 and Delay. Okay, so with the signal chain now out of the way, let's get into the meat of the song. We kick off the song with the kind of guitar build-up intro, and for this whole section, we're using the Prime Distortion. The Whammy and Phase 90 are in the signal chain, but they remain off. The Phase 90 does not appear in the entire song at all, normally, but occasionally I do want to put it on. So, the build-up can be anything from playing along with the bass line, to just scraping up the strings, to just noise, but this is the pedal to do it all on, and then we just go straight into the octave section, which sounds like this. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. All the distortions just ramped up, tones in the middle just to get a good level and balance with all the other pedals, and this, and the tone just gives a bit of punch, a bit of clarity to the high end, so that it kind of really just punch out. So after the intro and after there's no guitar in the first verse, we then go into the chorus. Signal chain, again the Whammy and the Phase 90 aren't in. The pedal itself is leaning more towards the distortion side of things. About 3 o'clock on the drive, and again just similar to the Prime Distortion, just a bit of clarity for the high end to really punch through. You don't really want any kind of muffly mid-level tones. You want to kind of punch through on the kind of the higher mids, so it sounds like this. And that's pretty much it for the kind of the rhythm sound for the whole song. Pretty bog standard distortion sound that I get. When we go on to the octave section again, we just click on the Prime Distortion just straight in as the riff comes back in. So we'll just demonstrate that again. So we punch through with the Prime Distortion from the get-go, from whenever the riff starts, and then it's just the exact same again. And then for the second verse is on the album, the guitar is playing along with the bass riff. Now you can do that again, just as we could do it in the intro. When I want to do that, when I want to make those sounds, I really listen to the studio version and hear that it's got this kind of scrapey sound to it, so I take the pick, turn it on its side, and then play the riff just like that. Just as this kind of like weird kind of artificial ambient kind of tone to it. That sort of works better if the level is quite a lot lower in the mix, so it's a bit more subtle. But what I normally try and do is switch over to patch C, bringing in the delay. That has just got a tap tempo along with the song, and I try and emulate what Matt has done for quite a long time now, and utilising the sustainer to hold the notes a bit like this. It really kind of doubles down on the ambient vibe, only purely brought out with the delay to really elongate those sounds. Without delay, it sounds a bit kind of boring, not really boring, but it really doesn't punch through as well. I mean, it's fine, but I prefer to add the delay on it to give it that extra dimension to kind of really take it somewhere. The other thing I like to do is to switch over to patch B and play along with the chords. Now this is sort of what Matt did around when the song first came out, so in 2003. If you watch any of those performances, we'll have a little sneaky pick here. So he just plays along with the chords, so it's just... It's really good that, again, that sort of works if you kind of take the level down a bit, kind of blend in with the track. The advantage is that you're already on the right patch to go into the chorus, and it's a complete different, it's a complete separation from the alternatives, which is emphasizing kind of like notes higher up the neck. And it's really nice, so there's a lot of options there. There is another one that I sometimes do, and I have got programmed into my rig, where we switch over to a higher octave, turn that on. It doesn't really matter which patch you want to use as long as there's delay on it. So we'll just go with patch C. So we've got the prime distortion with the delay on. Again, this is more what he was doing around 2004. So it's going to be a bit tricky with this. So we'll just hit the whammy all the way up from the beginning, and it's just... It's exactly the same notes as the lower down the neck on this section. But with the whammy, it gives it that extra kind of artificial dimension to it, that higher resonance frequency to really burst through. It works if you're standing up, and you can manipulate the treadle on the whammy there to go from the lower octave to the higher octave. And it's really good, and it's supposed to sound like this. That's it, and then we go into the next chorus, which we've already been through, so it's exactly the same tone, we don't need to cover that. And then we hit over for the breakdown into kind of in the intro to the chorus section. So we're on the prime distortion, and we just play the riff. And then that's the point where we click on some delay. Now that's supposed to go like this. Really, before we play, it doesn't really matter what setting I use. It depends on kind of the mood. If I want a bit more of a dull tone, I will go over to the overdrive distortion, which doesn't have as much punch for the high end. Or if I really want it to kind of be brutal with it, I could go with the prime distortion. So we're just going to go with the prime for this, and we'll see what that sounds like. the delay is key for this to really elongate those notes, really hold that tone. The other kind of the unsung hero for this, for me, and what really does is obvious, live, certainly live, hopefully, and I reckon it's still in use now, is the whammy. So let's take the prime distortion out, play that, and just hear what is going on without any distortion. And the volume pot control knob has just come off. Interesting. So we're going to put that there. So what does this sound like? It's nice, it's quite twinkly, and with a bit of distortion to fatten it up and to even more emphasise those high notes, it really comes through. Let's take out the delay and to strip it down even more to see what that sounds like. Take it off, so there's no effects going on right now. So it takes a regular boring guitar tone and just elevates it even more. Let's add in the distortion, just the distortion on its own, to see what that's doing. It doesn't work anymore. So that adds just the right amount of clarity, the right amount of punch, the right amount of bite to it. The delay and the distortion, what does that do together? There's a lot of repeats on that. I really like to emphasize that. You can roll that up as much as you want, or have as much or as little as you want. So they do work really well, but like I said, the unsung hero for this section is the whammy. It really does add that extra dimension, the extra higher end boost and punch to it. Because it's a solo, you want it to stand out. You want to add as many frequencies, as many octaves that work as you can without going too overboard. At first it might seem really subtle, but when you really listen to it and you do an A-B, just taking it on and off and listening to it, it really comes through. That higher octave really punches through. So the final section of the solo, the kind of slower bit, exact same settings as before, we're on the prime distortion with whammy and delay, and it sounds like this. The astute among you will know that all the notes played in the solo are just the chords in the chorus. C, G, D minor, and then A minor. Or is it D major? I can't remember right now. Like the previous section on the solo, the prime distortion is on, really punching through, adding so much bite and punch to it. The whammy and the delay are on as well. Give the delay giving it that kind of ambient feel, and the whammy once again being the unsung hero, and adding those higher octaves, those higher notes to really help that tone really come through. Without it, what does that sound like? There's a lot less noise. I mean, it's fine without it. If you haven't got a whammy, it's not the end of the world. But if you've got it, really utilize it in this section. That's what it really kind of comes through to me. Well, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It really is an unsung hero in this song to really give your tone something exciting about it. Without the delay, what is that like? I mean, it's fine with it, it comes through just enough, but the delay adds that extra level to it where it really kind of punches through just a little bit more. With the repeats on it, gives it that ambient feel, really says to everything else in the mix, you know, I'm here, as a delay's supposed to do. So altogether, it sounds great, but let's take the prime distortion out and just hear what the effects themselves are just bringing, so we can really hear it and listen to it. A lot of repeats there, and that's pretty much it. And then coming out of the solo section, we go straight back over to the chorus with the overdrive distortion. At this point in my rig, there is some MIDI going to the whammy to turn it off. And so when I hit the button to change over, it's usually at the exact same time this is coming off. And we just go straight over into the chorus again. The same as coming out of the solo into the chorus, the prime distortion comes straight on when you go into the riff post-chorus. And you can play whatever you want at that point, just as long as there's a big, fat distortion with a lot of punch through. You can play whatever you want. You can play the riff just as the same. It gets a bit boring to kind of repeat it over again, so I like to kind of play around with what's going on with that, but the distortion helps kind of really throw that tone into the forefront of it, which is what you want when you're playing a riff. What's the point in having a fat riff without some fat tonage behind it? So we can play anything. Or the classic. Another one that I do really like is playing the riff just on the higher E string. Tremolo picking really helps to kind of carry that out as well, and it's a lot easier to tremolo pick on the higher strings than it is the low ones, just because you've got the fretboard to play against. Maybe not that high up. Which is why it's easy to do the tremolo picking for Blackout, for example. Completely wrong song that we're doing right now, but it's. So with the right amount of distortion in that section, you can play anything you want. The fun one that Matt does, especially, that I think is quite funny, if anything, is just to hold an E, and then. that's pretty much it. Those are all the effects. Those are all the alternative riffs that you can play during any section of Hysteria. Big one is the Whammy. That's the again the unsung hero of this whole song to really kind of help those extra little sections kind of really punch through when you're not playing the big riff or the chorus. It really does help kind of punch through. So, outro time. So that was Hysteria. I hope you enjoyed that one. We've gone through all of the effects that I use in this section. Again, the unsung heroes in this are the Whammy and the delay to really bring out those softer, quieter sections really into the forefront. I hope it's given you a lot of food for thought about how you want to approach playing Hysteria yourself. If you've got a Whammy pedal, maybe if you're not using it, do use it, hook it up with some delay. If you've not got a Whammy, maybe this has given you even more of a reason to get one. I know that I loved it when I got my first Whammy pedal. I just played all sorts of songs with or without Whammy on the original, just to add an extra tone to it. But, just really experiment with kind of with the tones that you've got on the pedals that you've got at your disposal. Maybe even do some research on some pedals that you might want to get in future. But that was Hysteria. I really hope you enjoyed that one. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.